Okay, everybody. Today we have Kamal Patel, and he is our host for tonight's masterclass. So there will be a Q&A at some point. So please have your questions ready, but not during his presentation. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna leave it up to him.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the handoff there. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate the time. I know it's not the most fun thing in the world to do at 5:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night to listen to a lecture, but I appreciate you joining me today. I'll try to make this as fun and informational and practical as possible. I know I've definitely attended a lot of sessions that weren't as practical as I hoped when I attended. So happy to answer anything and really share what my real life experiences have been like. I apologize if my connection is a little shaky. I'm actually sitting in Florida right now. I'm in Spirit Airlines headquarters today. We're working with them starting today, and I'm here. So if I have shaky internet, sorry about that. So without further ado, we are talking about testing ideas before launching today. So how can we actually test our ideas in an easy and affordable way without actually having to build your entire idea from scratch? So that's kind of what we're talking about. Now, before I talk about this, you should probably wonder what the agenda is, and I have an introduction for me and also a little bit of overview on the importance of validating ideas early in the startup journey. And there's a book out there, if you've read it, it's called The Lean Startup. I think it's an okay book. It's not an amazing book, but I think it has a lot of really helpful values around this topic where you can have a lot of rapid prototyping. So I pulled a lot of information from that book, a lot of learnings from that book when I read it in the past. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'll be able to answer how can you quickly validate your ideas and what risks can you avoid by testing early? So those are the two questions I kind of want you to leave today with the answers to. And you probably should ask, who am I? Why should you care about what I have to say? So I personally have failed a lot in life, and that means that I've learned a lot in life about a lot of startups and a lot of initiatives around building products to give to an audience. I love to try new things and see what works, and I've definitely tried a lot of things over the years. And as of right now, I currently build and sell technology at a high level, enterprise SaaS, if anyone's curious on what it's called. I sell currently a product called Air Expert is the company that I'm a part of. I run all of the engineering team there. And I've sold to companies like JetBlue and United, and right now I'm at Spirit. So it's been a very long journey in startups for me, and I hope to continue it for the rest of my life. I do enjoy it quite a lot. So that's kind of who I am. So why test your ideas? And I kind of put a little motto here in yellow over here called fail fast, learn quickly, and iterate. And I'm sure you've heard the cliche of fail fast before, but I think this talk is really built around failing fast, learning, and then iterating to figure out why you failed and how to not fail it forward. Three reasons why you should probably care about testing your ideas is the first one is just saving time and resources by confirming an early need. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the story around Segways, if you remember those like mobile carts that Paul Blart Mall Cop used to ride around in the movies. That was a couple billion-dollar investment for no one to purchase. I think they purchased a couple thousand, or sorry, they sold a couple thousand units for billions of dollars in investment because they just didn't test their ideas and it didn't work out. So really testing your ideas, focusing on doing that early effort reduces a lot of wasted effort later on. So that's really important there for number one. You also can identify a lot of the potential pitfalls before heavy investment. So the Segway, of course, was not a successful product, but if they had actually built an early prototype, tested that with some users, and then got their feedback on what did work and what didn't work, they'd be able to iterate and come up with a problem, come up with an idea that actually did work for a large audience. So it really does help find those potential pitfalls that people are not willing to purchase, and then you don't invest time and resources into those pitfalls too. And then an example that I'm going to share a little bit later today in the conversation is you can build a lot of confidence with investors with a proof of concept. investors don't necessarily need to see a fully fleshed out product with a lot of earnings and revenue. You can get some investment from just a proof of concept that works really well for your users and that you're able to validate. And I'll share a very famous example about that later in the conversation. So moving forward, something I like to talk about is on this topic, a lot of people have a fear that if they try to build a prototype that isn't a very good level of quality, that they are kind of ruining their reputation and ruining the opinion that someone may have about their product because it's not perfect, it's not a high quality, it's a low quality prototype. So I like to talk about this concept of an early adopter. These are the kind of people that are much more forgiving to a lower quality standard. They're interested in new technology, they're interested in innovation, and these are people that you can provide extreme value to, and they're happy to be just an initial user and put up with the low quality product. They love to try new things, and you can think of the person with a basket of old electronics in their house that they never throw away. That's kind of who you're talking to. These are the people willing to put up with garbage products that don't work, but might work in a little bit small way, and they're happy to try those new products. I would consider myself as an early adopter for a lot of technology. I'm willing to put up with low quality to just see what is out there and try it out. Now, this early adopter profile is very different to the mass market. A lot of people expect a higher quality, expect polished and refined products, and they're much, much, much more resistant to change or new ideas. So they're less willing to spend their time and money on an unproven early product. That is not who your prototype is for. Your prototype is for an early adopter that is willing to put up with low quality to give you the feedback that you need to actually improve that product over time. So the strategy I've listed here is focus on testing and refining with early adopters first, because those people are going to be extremely valuable, extremely honest, and willing to provide you with good quality feedback. And then once you actually validate those feedback points, you can invest in quality improvements for a broader mass market audience. So the next slide here kind of shows the, it's a slide that some of you may have seen before, but people kind of fall into this distribution where most people are in the early majority or late majority. These are kind of the people that need some proof ahead of time before they actually go to purchase something. They need their friend to tell them that this is a good product. They need to see The Rock holding it on TV. Something needs to happen for this person to gain some trust for adopting your product. The laggard, they're all the way on the right. That person is likely never going to purchase your product, ever. They are too difficult to convince to use it. They just don't care about your product. They just don't care about adopting a new technology to do something they're already doing. The part we really care about is the early adopter. That little over 16, a little over 15% there of the population that is willing to try new products to actually see what's out there. If you've heard of a company called Paychex, they're based out in Rochester, the percentage of the market that they needed to become $1 billion company was 2%. So 2% is all they ever got in terms of market share. They never even hit the early majority. They never even hit the late majority or the laggards. 2% is what got them to be $1 billion company. And they just did the early adopters. Now that's a very large market. Every company on the planet needs payroll software, but that's kind of going to give you a good example of focus on the people that are willing to try something new, target that audience, improve the product, and then move on to the early majority, then the late majority, then the laggards. But I'd be shocked if most products even hit the laggards. So moving on there, I kind of want to watch an example of a great, very good product kind of prototype that was put together for Dropbox. Now, I don't know if the audio is going to play,
You've been there.
but
Your
I don't think that matters. Can you
eyeshadow
guys hear this
wallet
audio?
is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home.
Can you guys hear that before I just play the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna play it. It's 2 minutes long. I think it's worth watching, and I think you'll get a lot of value out of it.
You've been there. You're about to buy lunch and realize your wallet is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home. The problem is organization. You need one place for everything, like a magic pocket. Putting something in the magic pocket means it's always there, no matter what you wear or where you are. The same thing is true for computers. If you have more than one, keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem is one of the big ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He needs to consolidate it all and is tired of having to email files to himself or move them around with a USB drive. Then he found Dropbox, which creates a new kind of folder on his computers. These folders work hard to be exactly alike, even across Macs and PCs. By adding his itinerary to his laptop Dropbox, he can be sure the same file will show up in his desktop Dropbox and even on his phone. The same thing happens when he saves a document in a Dropbox folder. The document gets updated across all of his Dropboxes. But it's not just his computers. The Dropbox website also works to be exactly like his other Dropboxes. Anything he puts in Dropbox is available on the website automatically. This way, if his Jeep takes a dive and his computer is ruined, he can still get to his files on the Dropbox website, where they're always backed up.
Hopefully you guys heard the audio there. I think this is a good example of a very, very, very good creative prototype for a product. So I believe this video was made maybe like 15 years ago. And this video was really made because they invented cloud storage for people. And, we all take for granted OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox today, but they invented that like 15 years ago. And no one really understood the concept of having a file in one place show up in another place. That was their startup problem, right? That's the problem they were solving, but no one could really tangibly understand the actual problem they were solving, and they didn't necessarily have the money to actually build the thing they wanted to solve. So they were kind of having this chicken and egg problem. Okay, so we know there's this problem to solve, but I don't have the money from investors to actually build the thing, but the investors won't give me any money because they don't understand the thing. And the investors needed some sort of tangible product to actually believe in the idea. They needed a tangible product to understand the idea. So Dropbox wasn't going to be able to sell lemonade at a lemonade stand to earn the money to make this. So instead, they had to get creative. They made a short, engaging video, the one you just saw, and that was supposed to demonstrate the product's benefits, how it actually worked. And it clarified the vision without building any product. They didn't write a single line of code. They didn't buy a domain name for a website. They didn't do anything other than make a video and put it on YouTube. That video was made out of paper and stop motion. Literally a $0 investment, other than the time they spent making the video, is all they did. And from that video, they were able to get their early investment to then go build the product. And they were able to get a lot of validation of like, wow, I just watched your video. I would love if that product existed. Here's my email. I'll sign up for it when it's available. So that's a fantastic example of just the founders being extremely creative, of coming up with a way to convey their idea without necessarily building their idea. And that's a very famous example because obviously we all know what Dropbox is today. It's a very successful company. So this is kind of a graphic that I like to share with people. It has lots of free and cheap ways to validate ideas. I kind of blocked off in black rectangles of the parts I don't think that are valuable on this graphic, but essentially this is a bunch of ways where you as a student have access to building this stuff. And I know that because I did this when I was a student at UB. I competed in the Panache competition. I had to figure out how to validate my idea without having any money to actually build the idea. And I ended up validating it through a couple of these methods, and I won. And it was pretty cool because we were able to get validation early without building anything. Then we won Panache, won some money to actually go build something with that money from the validation we had done. So I'll point out a couple of my favorites on here just because I think some of them are more useful than others. So the first one on the list is email campaigns. I think writing emails and just sending them and see what people engage with. If you have a good call to action in an email of saying like, hey, sign up for our product, buy our product now. If you get 1,000 people clicking on that button, clearly there's some interest on the messaging that you're sending in that email. Same thing with a landing page. If you can get people on a landing page to actually interact with your call to action, whether it's buy, sign up for something, go on a wait list of some sort, all of that's really good on a landing page on a website. Super simple to do. Very lots of free options to build a landing page on a website. The fake door is one of my favorites. It's something that I often do personally in my professional career, is suggest that a product exists when it actually doesn't. And if people start interacting with it, you know which products matter to those people. There's a famous story of Zappos, the shoe company. They would put different shoes on their website and they wouldn't have any inventory. But then when people started buying the inventory in specific sections, that's when they knew this is the product I should order and keep in my shelves, not these shoes over here that weren't selling. So they would have a bunch of fake product pages and then order the inventory from the ones that were actually selling from the fake product pages. Very smart. I've done it a few times with Air Expert stuff. It really does work. Explainer video. We just watched one from Dropbox and it's great. It's a very simple way to come up with a way to convey your ideas, and it's very cheap to make an explainer video. If you don't have any artistic talent to make a stop motion video like they did, Fiverr is a great resource. There's lots of very, very, very cheap animators available on Fiverr that are willing to make a video with you. And then pre-order is probably the most powerful way on this list on the left to get validation. Are people willing to pay you for your product before you even have a product? That is, if people can vote with their money, it's an extremely powerful way to validate. There's a company in Buffalo called Big Daddy Garden Caddy, if you haven't heard of them. They're pretty cool people. They had a pre-order list before they had a product, and they had hundreds of people pre-order their product, which really gave them the validation to actually go build that product for that audience. So pre-orders, very, 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 very good way to validate your ideas. On the right side of the list, piecemeal. So this is something that I did a lot in college. So there's tools like Zapier, there's tools like Typeform that essentially you can piecemeal together with other tools and build your application in a way where you can actually see the application work. It's just not one application. It's a couple other applications daisy chained together. So I'll give you an example. Typeform is a form builder that I used in college to validate my first startup idea. We wanted people to be able to report parking tickets using their phone, and that's not something that you can do in the city of Buffalo. So we built a type form where people could fill out the form with their photo of the person parking illegally. That information would then get transferred to a Google Sheet. So daisy chained those two apps together. There would be a record in the Google Sheet. And every time a new row popped up in that Google Sheet, there would be another tool called Zapier that would read that a new row had existed, that would then link to my Gmail account and send someone an email about that picture report that someone did. So I piecemealed 4 tools together and built one experience for the end user. They had no idea, right? They just thought everything worked, but I knew that it was piecemealing some tools together. Concierge is the next one I really, really, really do like. And a lot of people overlook it because I think it's really bad advice in the startup world where people say, do things at scale so that you don't have to worry about scale later. I think that's terrible advice. Do things that don't scale because that's the stuff that's going to stand out to your early adopters and keep them loyal to you. Great example here, Instacart. Instacart actually started as the founders going to different soccer moms' houses and they would just do their shopping. Like, hey, sit down with me at your dinner table, right? Let's a shopping list with me. I will go to Wegmans, buy the groceries, bring them back to you, and you will pay me. That was the first iteration of Instacart. And they were able to validate what was important to the soccer mom. What kind of things did they need in their checklist? How detailed did it need to be? Did it need to be the specific product they recommended, or could there be an alternative? And now they were able to get a ton of validation just by doing it themselves, the concierge method, right? Having a person do it. So doing things that don't scale at the beginning really make a lot of sense to provide a white glove experience for your customer. Last one here that I'll talk about is Wizard of Oz. So illusion of an automated product. So in today's world, we take a lot of instant gratification for granted, in my opinion, but there are some tools that don't necessarily need an instant gratification. So like if you export a report out of your marketing system, can that report be emailed to you 30 minutes later? Probably. You probably don't need that report right in the moment. But what if you had a marketing platform, you didn't have a reports feature yet, but you could manually find the data for the customer and then email it to them to make it look like it was automated? That's something you could totally do. And instead of building the product of reports for your marketing software, you could just find the data yourself, write it into an Excel sheet, and email it to the person. And it looks like it's automated, but it's totally manual effort by you in the back end. If a lot of people start using that service, then you say, okay, it makes sense to invest in automating this for real instead of having, Craig in the corner doing it himself on his computer. So Wizard of Oz stuff really does make sense for a lot of features, a lot of products that you're building. From there, you'll probably notice on this list, I did not include surveys. I don't want to encourage you to use surveys. I think surveys are really, really good at times. But what I find is the most important advice I can probably give you on this topic is that surveys are great, but get comfortable talking to people. I see a lot of students doing surveys to validate their ideas, and I think that's like a mediocre level of effort put into validating your idea. Go talk to someone, ask them questions about what they care about. Once someone starts complaining to you, because people love complaining about their problems, you can start asking questions like, oh, why is that such a big pain point? Is that pain point bigger than this pain point? Why don't you rank your pain points in order from first to fifth? And then you know immediately what's important to that person. They can give you real insights about what they need to see to purchase your product. And who knows, you might be able to even get them to buy your product on a phone call. And then there's this magical question that you should always be asking in every conversation you have. Who else can I talk to about this problem that you think I should be talking to? That first person you talk to can refer you to another person, and that person can refer you to another person. I was once doing a startup idea, trying to validate it. I talked to over 200 people who use diesel exhaust fluid in their diesel vehicles. Not the most interesting thing in the world, but we were trying to come up with a new way to deliver diesel exhaust fluid to people. And I talked to 200 people about that and got their opinions. I would call up random gas stations in America and just talk to some truckers that had this pain point that we were trying to solve. And they would be annoyed at times. They would hang up on me. I'd get rejected, but it gave me such level of insight that a survey just could not do. So I really do recommend surveys are great, but get comfortable talking to people. And just for the real world, like if you get rejected on validating your startup and you get rejected for a job, rejected in an interview, it's going to help you just become much more comfortable in those negative situations than you could be without that practice. So really recommend getting on the phone with people. There's a new kind of magic in the world right now, and I'm not really sure how much UP is teaching you about it. So I'll try to do a mediocre job right now to teach you about it. But there's a lot of AI software tools in the world where anyone can build software. So this is not super helpful for the folks that care about hardware or care about physical products or CPG products. But for software people, you can use a lot of tools that are very, 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 very new to the world, and they're getting better every single day to build simple versions of most applications. I use it in my real job. Like I use it for tools for American Airlines, Delta Airlines, JetBlue, like people at these large companies are using our products that are prototyped through these tools. So I gave three examples over here. Lovable, it's free. These are this one's free, and this third one I'm going to mention is free. The second one is paid, but Lovable is free. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's pretty great. It's a tool that excels at making really good front ends with a simple back end. It's not great at the back end. So if you have a lot of like business logic heavy, like if this, then do this kind of apps, Lovable is probably not your tool. But if you want to put up a simple web page to do a simple workflow for a business automation, Lovable is great and it's free. So great app to use there. The second one here, Replit, this is if you have a lot of complex business knowledge. It is a paid application. It's not really useful in the free application, in my opinion. And it's also not great at the front end. So you may want to keep your front end pretty simple. But Replit is pretty great for a complex backend application. And then v0.dev, amazing front ends that you can generate from this app. Just absolutely phenomenal. Yesterday, I was working on something that I sent one message to v0, and it probably did the work of 10 engineers from 10 years ago in one message. It's just incredible. It's really like magic that has been invented in the world. And I really do encourage you guys to experiment to use them because they're free. V0 and Lovable, free. Just go try to build something that you are interested in. My friend Emily, she built her girlfriend a test tracker to keep track of her studies on for her MCAT. Built that for free. Would have taken a team of engineers a year to build before, but now you can just build it in minutes. It's crazy. And I also want to mention, if you're interested in this kind of software magic, there's a newsletter that I read called No Code Exists. It's a great newsletter. It's free. Sign up for it. It just shares stories of other people building no code tools, startups using no code tools, and the success that those businesses have seen from the very little investment in technology that they can make now. So check it out if you are interested. So your key takeaways: test early, test often. Make sure that you're testing. It's a very important thing. Prioritize the early adopters, those people that are actually going to give you the time of day, and don't worry about the laggards. Don't worry about the people that scoff at a new idea or innovation. Don't worry about those people. Get the people with a basket of electronics in their attic that they refuse to throw out. Get those people. Leverage technology, like I just mentioned. There's literal magic that exists. Use those products if you can. See them, try them, learn them. I think they're going to be very, very, very impactful for the next 10 years of technology. So please take a look. And then plan for growth. You're testing these ideas, you're validating these ideas, but you should think about, okay, great, this person just gave me some feedback. How does that actually line up for 5 years down the line for my business? And I have the decisions you make early on are going to impact you for many, many years to come. So plan those ideas with the long view. I rarely take the short view in life. You should always take the long view in life, in my opinion. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with here, I think I have one more slide, but testing isn't really about perfection. It's about learning and adapting. You absolutely could have the wrong idea, wrong product to work on, something that will never work. That's totally possible. It happens to thousands of companies every single day. But your goal isn't perfecting that idea. It's about learning and adapting to change that idea to become better. Think of it kind of like horse riding. You're going to ride a horse as far as I can go. And as soon as that horse can no longer go, you're going to switch to a different horse and try that one next. And you're going to keep learning if the horse can go further. If it can't go further, adapt and jump to a different horse. So that's kind of how you want to think about this testing of products. That's all I got. So happy to answer any questions. I really appreciate it, the time and ability to talk to you guys. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I should be the only Kamal Patel in Buffalo. So if you want to connect, happy to connect. Any questions? Happy to answer anything.
Um, Sorry, I was gonna ask like when you talk to like when you do like customer discovery and you like talk to people, is there a way that you go about like picking people to talk to so that you get the right feedback or is there
Sure.
or you just like try to talk to as many people as possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. So this is kind of the thing that I see with a lot of students, analysis paralysis, and then you don't do anything. Um, who cares who you talk to? Talk to whoever, right? Get their feedback. Of course, you kind of want them to be targeted to your demographic to in a little way, right? To make sure that they're qualified to talk to you. You don't want to go to the knitting club's organizer if you're talking about a technology product. Probably don't want to do that, right? But I would say it's a negative thing to think about people not being qualified to talk about it because they might have additional life experiences in other realms of life that could apply to the realm that you're working on. I currently work in the aerospace aviation industry. I sell software to airlines, and I have a biomedical engineering degree. I have a medical degree. I've never used it usefully in my life. I just went straight to software, and that's where I've been useful in my life now. So if someone looked at my resume and said, huh, I probably shouldn't talk to Kamal about software, they'd obviously be wrong because I only have a medical degree, right? So of course you should pick some targeted people to talk to, but in my experience, everyone has something valuable to say.
Okay.
One last thing I'll say there, treat it kind of like a funnel. If you think of a funnel, your arms, right? Like the top is big, bottom is small. So if you put 400 conversations into the top of the funnel, you might get 50 at the bottom. And if your goal is to talk to 100 people, it sounds like you need to reach out to 800 people then. So, think of life as a funnel in pretty much any way, shape, or form. If you need a doctor's appointment tomorrow, call 10 doctors, don't call one, right? So think of life as a funnel. Thank you, Abdullah. I appreciate the question. Anyone else?
Yeah, do you have any advice for like handling rejections? Because it can
Yeah,
be so disheartening sometimes.
definitely is disheartening. I've had a lot of a long string of rejections in life. It just happens. I get it. It's tough, right? It is tough. And there's no getting around that, especially because you have your hopes up for something and then it doesn't work out, right? And that's always going to be difficult. What I will say is it does get easier as you get rejected more often. It's kind of just um, practice at getting rejected. And you won't be good at something if you don't practice. So I know that's not great advice because obviously then it's scary to practice, but it is the truth. You're not going to be successful without that practice. What I would say though is there are easy methods of practice that have zero risk. Try with your mom, try with a friend, right? Like these are people that you can talk to that are going to be nice to you. Their advice may not be the most valuable in the world because they're obviously biased because they care about you. But I think it's a good starting point to have conversations if you even struggle to have conversations. Um, People our age just don't even pick up the phone. It's not something that we do. It's not something that's normal. So pick up the phone, talk to your mom, and see what she thinks about your idea. And I think that would be a good practice for talking to a stranger. If you need a stranger to talk to, happy to talk to any of you. I will happily give you advice and my mediocre opinions about whatever you're working on. Hopefully that helps, Mary. Of
Yeah, thank you.
course. Justin, I see you thinking. Are you thinking about any questions?
No, no questions from me, unfortunately. But
No?
I was happy to listen.
Okay, cool. Katie from Canisius, anything going on over there?
Yes, I am from Canisius. My is in physical education teaching. And honestly, my question was going to be asking you about like breaking through barriers and staying motivated and positive, but you kind of just honed in on that. I was banking on asking you that, but she beat me to it. But
Sure.
it was a great response anyway. So
Sure. And I guess you added a little bit to it, staying positive. If you really believe in the thing you've got, you got to believe in it no more than anybody else in the world. I personally believe that I can change the airline industry, and I have. People, if you've flown on JetBlue in the last year and a half, I've helped make your flight safer.
I have. So
Well, hey, thank you. Right. And that kind of belief in your idea is what you got to keep hanging on to. Because if you, as soon as you lose that belief, you're fucked. Sorry
Yeah.
if I can't swear on this, but
No, it's real. I
so
agree.
so you got to believe in your idea more than anybody else in the whole wide world.
Thank you for that. That's
Of course.
really good advice. Thank you.
Of course. Nadia, I'm just calling out people. Got anything from you? Miss Williams, what about you? Anything over there? All right.
I have another one if you don't mind.
I definitely don't mind. Go for it.
So once you do like once you do all of your your customer discovery and you talk to a bunch of people and you get their feedback, like do you have a process by which you like see how you like kind of like figure out how to like integrate their feedback to like change your product or whatever? I guess, and is there a way like for example you'd know like if some feedback is bad, or like how do you prioritize feedback, or am I overthinking that?
I don't think you're overthinking it. I think some feedback is bad. While I talk about this slowly, I'm going to try to pull up something that I used to use when I talked to all those gas stations. I essentially had a script of things that were important to me. I'm not going to be able to pull it up. Oh well, whatever. I had a script of questions that I wanted to ask each individual, and these questions were framed in a way where I could have comparable answers. So, do you care about X or Y? How many people picked X or Y? Can you rank these 5 things in top to bottom in terms of your pain? Okay, how many people ranked it 1? How many people ranked it 2, 3, 4, 5? That's comparable, right? Like you want to kind of frame your questions. Oh, hey Kurt, really? I'll see you in the morning. All right, I'll see you in the morning. Cool, thank you. Sorry about that. You want to frame your questions in a way where you are going to be able to compare the results and also then ask questions that you can't compare the results. Because at the end of the day, you're a human. You're going to be able to have 200 conversations. Kind of over time, you're going to get a gut feeling on where conversations are going to go before you even have them. And you're going to get a gut feeling for those qualitative answers and be able to make a judgment call on those. So have a mix, some quantitative, some qualitative. You, as a human, have a brain, and that brain is capable of reasoning beyond any computer can do. And you're going to have just a gut feeling around that qualitative data.
So is your criterion then like what information can I do something with, and what information is like kind of I can't really do something with?
Yeah. What information can I do something with in Excel? And then what information can I do something with my gut feeling?
Okay.
And both are extremely important. Both are extremely important. I can tell you right now that the new ideas do not come from the quantitative questions. The new ideas come from the qualitative questions, where you're asking, what hurts? What are your biggest problems in your job? And I'm sure each of you with a job just thought of your 3 biggest problems at your job. And I'm not going to know that until I ask you that qualitative question and you just spew your word vomit at me, right? And then hopefully I can type fast enough, or my AI note taker can write fast enough to jot that down. And then later I think about that and how it relates to other conversations. So not a good answer. You have to do both. But I think both are very, very, very valuable. Cool. Any other questions?
It's unrelated, but how are you handling all of this new regulations with the airlines and whatnot?
It's a good question. So it's a very interesting time in the world, right? Very interesting time. We'll see how the world is in 2 years. But in the aviation industry specifically, we've seen an administration go from very for the passenger, and very much now it's for the business, for the airline. And I don't really know how it'll go, because at the end of the day, airlines do have to fly safely, because obviously they don't want to be unsafe. But of course, our executives at an airline worried about their bottom line? Yes. So this, I think, could be good for us in our business because we happen to make the airline much more efficient in their operation and much more safe in the operation. So we make a maintenance tool to help fix the planes better. So I think with the recent unfortunate events with plane crashes, I think it's good for us because it highlights the need for better tools. I'm not necessarily sure about the regulation, how that'll impact us, because I think it'll help the airlines make more money, which is good because they have more money to spend. But also, it's kind of hurting the bottom dollar of every American right now. So they don't have as much money to spend on airline tickets. So it's a double-edged sword there. Delta today just slashed their earnings expectation by 50% for the first quarter, from 70 cents to 35 cents on the dollar. So that's because Americans just have less money under this current administration. So not to get into politics, but that's just like facts. Yeah, just facts.
Good luck.
Thank you. Cool. Anyone else happy to talk about anything? If you have a specific problem that you're like, hey, I'm building this thing, how would I validate it? Happy to answer that too. All right. Well, I will give back the microphone to someone else. Not sure who's supposed to take it, but
I can ask a more specific question, like about your business specifically. Like, airlines are like pretty heavily regulated, or they were. Do you find like market validation tougher with more regulation, or?
yes. So I wouldn't think about it in terms of regulation. I'd think about it in terms of accessibility for the right people. So who on this call can talk to Tim Cook at Apple? Nobody, none of us, right? And that's a very difficult person to get a hold of. Okay, let's think one level below Tim. Okay, the COO at Apple, not possible. VPs at Apple, maybe possible, very difficult. Directors, managers, individual contributors. Who do you actually need to talk to in that level, and how accessible is that person? The same things at Apple are true for American Airlines. I can't talk to the CEO of American Airlines on a dime. Can't talk to the COO, can't talk to the VPs, probably could talk to the directors with a little bit of credibility. That's a difficult thing to do, though, is just find the right people within an organization to talk to with zero credibility. So for airlines, Fortune 500 companies, it's going to be very difficult for you to get that conversation. If you're selling to a mom and pop machine shop that's just making parts for cars, pretty easy to talk to the owner. Probably can figure out where their front door is and knock on it. So it depends on the organization that you're working with. The regulation doesn't necessarily have to do with the difficulty of getting the conversation. The prestige or the status of that organization kind of has to do with the difficulty of getting that conversation. Locally in Buffalo, there's M&T Bank, of course. I know some high ups at M&T Bank, but it's taken me a long time to figure out those relationships. Without relationships, without referrals, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to find their way into that conversation, even though that's the customer that they're trying to hit. So yeah, it's dependent on prestige and status and how difficult the conversation is to get. When I was calling gas stations, pretty easy for me to Google on for just truck stops in my area, right? But pretty difficult for me to Google contact information of American Airlines CEO. So it's just different. Anyone else? Abdullah, thank you for the question. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I know we're coming up on time, and I don't want to keep you guys too late. Thank you again, Justin. I appreciate it. Thank you as well.
Thank you so much for taking your time to host this masterclass today. It was really great to hear things about your perspective, especially with like airlines right now and air travel. It's a little scary right now, so it really did calm my nerves too.
Good. Well, I'm happy. thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate it. I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world to do is join a call at 5:30 on a Tuesday night, but I would want to tell you right now, you guys are clearly doing the right thing. You want to join extra things and put that on your plate to stay ahead. And I can see that in each of you. So thanks for joining, and I'm glad you guys are doing the right thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank
course.
you.
Cool.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
later.
Hope to see you again sometime.
See you guys.